Hi, everybody. My name is Tom. This is another Epidose of the Ketogenic Fasting Project on Carnivore. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Lisa. Lisa, why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
All right, I am a 11-year carnivore veteran.
11
I have
years.
11 years, yeah. So I guess I haven't been publicly very visible through a lot of that because once you come to this and you find that you found the golden ticket, you just sort of go along and live your life. But I know there's so many people that can be helped, and I know now that this big movement is here, more and more people taking interest. People become very interested in somebody who's done this long term because I think one of the main concerns people have is this sustainable? Can you do this long term? And more importantly, is this actually healthy to do long term? So I guess it's just nice to know I'm here with no scurvy. Really no health issues whatsoever. I've had a lot of health issues that were cured by this. I had adult acne that in 2 weeks totally disappeared. I actually have before and after shots of that on my Instagram, if anybody's interested. I have had a lifelong sugar and carb addiction and dealt with a horrible issues with eating disorders. And I also feel that it's just been a life changer for me. I was psychologically, I never actually suffered from depression or any diagnosed mental illness, but I know for sure I am a much better and different person now than I ever was. Hopped up on all the sugar and carbs. And I know just I'm an eye optometric physician, so doing eye exams and having patients in my chair who are diabetic with some diabetic retinopathy and trying to, I guess, spread the word as best I can to many people in need. It's been a frustrating journey, but also really rewarding. Frustrating in that it's nobody really wants to be told that this is what you need to do to really be healthy is just eat meat. But on the flip side, there's many people I'll say that are at the end of their rope, whether it's mental illness or physical illness, that are ready to make the change. And I think it's important that people know that this is sustainable, and it's actually one of the greatest things that's ever happened in my life, and probably you too, Tom, in your life.
For sure. Absolutely. So let me ask you, have you ever actually seen a person who had scurvy?
No, no. And, I got to say, I jumped into this very quickly when I came about this back in way back in the day when Charles Washington had a thread off of the low carb, Jimmy Moore's Live in La Vida Loca low carb group. And I read about some other women in that group that were writing on that forum about curing themselves of eating disorders, and all sorts of other people writing about arthritis and hypertension and diabetes they were being cured of. And so I just jumped in and decided to be my own N=1, as is said, and just kept researching along the way, because I didn't want to obviously just blindly go where I didn't know where I was going. And the more I read, the more I did it, the better I felt, and the more confident I felt that this actually is truly sustainable and healthy. So it was a win-win situation.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about how, type 2 diabetes is probably the low-hanging fruit. And you see so many people that have issues that seem to stem from that metabolic syndrome type condition, where people have just clearly been consuming too many carbohydrates, too many refined carbohydrates in particular, and they have type 2 diabetes, they have a lot of weight gain, and then it just splinters off from there, right? And I'm sure you see a lot of conditions in the eye that are related to that, or at least made worse by that, right?
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing though is even trying to guide a patient into the actual knowledge that their diabetes is truly curable. They there's so many that just listen to their doc. No, my doctor said I'll have this for the rest of my life, and I'm pretty good at monitoring my sugar, and I know when it's low, and I know when I need to change my insulin, and they are just somehow complacent, a lot of them, that this is what they've been dealt with and they're dealing with it. And I try to transition the conversation. Were you ever told about limiting carbohydrates or how your body does not tolerate carbohydrates and eating healthy? And they say, oh, I eat really healthy. And I said, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Oh, I had a bowl of oatmeal and a banana.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, wow, that's probably one of the least healthy breakfasts a diabetic can eat. And I try to then lead them to different websites and information, but it's very difficult. I think everybody has to have their own driving force motivation to to actually want to try this. But um, it's been great for me to see the whole movement toward how much word's getting out. I think we're so brainwashed by the media to feel like we have to eat fruits and vegetables, and we have to have
Right.
fiber, and we have to eat lean. And like, I mean, who the heck wants to eat boneless, skinless chicken breast and fish? I mean, how are we possibly, but that's what we're told. I mean, I can't even tell you how many years I went through just thinking, you know, that low fat was the way to lose weight. And I struggled with weight my whole life. My parents are obese and type 2 diabetic. My brother's obese and type 1 diabetic. And I clearly had the same genetics as the rest of them. And
Imagine that.
yeah, chubby as a kid and did not want to be fat and teased, and just
Mm.
kept working diet after diet after diet, and just led right into eating disorders to keep the weight off. And I'm happy to say now I'm 55 and have had 2 children, and I can wear a bikini.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, right? You know, it's like you've got a whole family of people with problems that you can compare to that are, like you said, similar in genetics, and the difference is diet. You chose to change your diet 11 years ago, and it worked. You know, and you're right. I think one of the big problems is that being unhealthy has been normalized. You know, it starts with small things like indigestion. You know, there's all these remedies and prescriptions you can get for heartburn or whatever. And then you get to the far end of the spectrum and people are using a lot of insulin and they're taking metformin and who knows what other drugs to deal with high blood sugar. And then it's just accepted that it's a progressive disease that you can't cure. And then people get in these strange arguments about what a cure is, because if you start eating a bunch of sugar again, you're going to get your diabetes back, right? So you didn't actually cure it. You know, that's like, it's
Right.
like what the message is. If you just change your diet, you don't have to suffer, right? You don't
Right.
have to
Or
be
if we
sick.
didn't have this diet of the standard American diet to begin with, you never would have become diabetic. So,
Yeah, and I even take it a step further and say, well, I don't even like the standard American diet term, because when you start looking at the research and you find out as agriculture came in and people started growing grains, you saw that their teeth got worse, you saw that their cranium shrank, you saw that their skeletons shrank, you see the joint disease, you see the signs of diabetes, and a greater prevalence of cancer started hundreds of years ago, you know. And now, of course, in the West, we do have a great deal of inexpensive refined carbohydrates, and the disease is even more intensified, you know. And I think it's hard for people to believe that we're a species that evolved to eat meat, and we evolved the way we did because we ate meat, you know.
right.
think it's
Right,
that
and
simple.
the other thing is so many people cannot comprehend the fact that you should not eat pizza, and that I have not had pizza in 11 years, and that, that actually is not a healthy food to eat, along with, bagels and sandwiches and, um, aside from the whole sugar thing, but
I did a
um,
whole video on why pizza is poison not that long ago.
really interesting. I'll have to
I,
check out your videos.
I was parking to go in the store, and next door's a pizza place, and the parking was in the back, and there's a delivery truck at the pizza parlor, and the guy's unloading these giant bags of flour, right? And it says right on the side of big letters, high gluten flour. And I was like, gee,
Whoa,
oh, that's like, seems like the worst possible scenario,
word
right?
toxic should have been written.
Yeah, and then you find out, well, that's why that dough is stretchy like that, because it's high in gluten. That's what makes it rubbery, so they
Right.
can stretch those crusts out and do all those fancy aerobatics with the
With the,
dough in the air. So yeah, yeah, and pizza is a really common food, and unfortunately, a lot of autistic people are very picky eaters, and that tends to be a staple. They consider it a food group. Pizza is a food group. You just eat different kinds of pizza, right?
yeah, and you can put vegetable toppings on, right? That makes it healthy.
Mm. Yeah, and you load it up with some nightshades, the worst
Yeah.
kind of vegetables, probably. So, tell us about the early days of the carnivore movement that you witnessed.
Yeah. Really, I I think for the most part, a lot of us were searching for, I guess, the evidence, just like I guess people do now, but it's so much more easily, readily available. But we would post the PDF of the bear, Stan Owsley, which, he was kind of like a long time, lifelong carnivore.
He was a sound engineer and roadie for the Grateful
Yeah,
Dead, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then Stephenson, the book, Not by Bread Alone, and
Hmm. I did
uh,
a video on that too.
yeah, oh yeah. So, that was all the discussions and topics back then, because we really didn't have ourselves to go on, because as far as I know, other than the bear and these, explorers, there really wasn't a group of people. I mean, then we found there was the Andersons, who we eventually came upon that they had actually already been doing it at that point, I think 10 years. Now I think they're over 20.
Hmm.
So, but that back then, that was big deal for us, because I guess it's the equivalent of me back then, is saying, wow, these people are still healthy and doing it and thriving. And um, but yeah, we pretty much, it was a pretty close community because of that we were all finding such amazing positive health and, mental benefits to it. And we would get together and do meetups. I think in the past 11 years I've met up now probably about 14 different times, um, where we would just post where we're going to go, and we'd all get to a churrascaria like Fogo de Chao, or Plataforma, or some other big Brazilian meat house, and we'd march in there and sit at like a table of 20 of us, and nobody up to do the salad bar. We'd flip the card to green and wait for the prey to meet, and we'd all just really have a great, a great gathering, because this was really, even before we didn't have these Zoom meetings, we weren't all just kind of hanging around chatting like this. We typed in our own little journal forums and
Mm.
commented on each other's. And so I want to say back then it was kind of an archaic form of figuring out zero carb, but we sure did it. And I don't know how many have stuck to it since then, but certainly all of them, all of us who've had life-changing benefits, are all still eating meat.
Yeah, I think we were talking about that earlier. A lot of people in the diet related communities, most people come for the weight loss, but then, carnivore, we see a lot of people that had serious, uh, issues other than just weight gain, and, whether they be emotional problems or physical problems, like I said, like arthritis or,
Right.
Anxiety and depression are real common just because people get such a fast result, you know. At first you notice your digestion's better and then your mood's better and then your joints stop hurting or whatever. So
Right.
that's a very compelling reason to stay on the diet because you go off and, crippling conditions can come back on the drop of a dime,
Yeah, pretty quickly. And then so back then I'll bring up a topic I'm sure a lot of your viewers are probably interested in is the whole blood work. You know, I was cautious initially being in the medical field and a physician myself. I obviously didn't want to do anything that was going to harm myself. So each year I got blood work done. And after, I guess, the first 4 or 5 years, it got boring. And I just literally have not bothered to do it since. I know there's a number of people now who are encouraging me just for their own curiosity to get blood work done again. But you know, things have always been good. My triglycerides were great, and I I think that there's parameters, ranges of what the what's considered the low and the high end of normal, and once you fall out of that, you get flagged. And I'm not so sure those ranges are exactly accurate for somebody who's a total 100% carnivore. So, certainly there, I guess, standard ranges where outside of them, they might start to see symptoms, but I feel great. I haven't been sick, and my blood work has been extremely boring. So I just really, I don't get sick. So there's not so much reason for me to run and see what that number is on my cholesterol, because mainly I wouldn't do anything even if it was 230 or whatever. I'd say, well, that's normal for somebody who eats a lot of ribeye. And
yeah.
if I have no other symptoms and everything's going great, what am I going to do at this point? Change it and start eating some vegetables and risk having a slippery slope into my eating disorders again? No, thank you.
Hmm.
So, I mean, that's why people say, well, are you afraid to get your blood work done? Why aren't you doing it? It just is of no interest to me at this point, because I'm not going to change what I'm doing. But I certainly would, consider it, just because I know there's a lot of curiosity in the community now that I've sort of come out and put myself out there publicly. I'd love to help other people. I coach, personal friends, and I've really helped a lot of my patients who are willing to listen. But I know there's a lot more people out there to help. And now that this has become less of, I always felt like I was flying my freak flag all along. And that got kind of old when you bring it up and somebody say, what do you mean you don't eat vegetables? Well, I actually don't think vegetables are healthy for you. And then who wants to go into that conversation over and over again? So I just pretty much stopped talking about it. I just eat my meat and live my life. But I know there's a lot that can be done now that this is becoming much more, I don't want to say normal, but much, much more popular as a actual cure for so many really, really, really devastating things that people are living through.
Yeah. Yeah. And all the things that people typically take some sort of medication or remedy for, like you said, you don't get sick anymore. I haven't been sick in 2 years, and it was, it was the little stuff, even like a cold or the seasonal flu or whatever. I got it like everyone else, and then you take some remedies, you take some NyQuil or you take some vitamins or, the typical stuff, and all that potentially has a negative impact. You're taking something to mitigate some of the symptoms, but in the end, stuff's not really good for you. It just makes you feel better while you're sick, right?
Masking the symptoms, yeah.
And
Well,
then go ahead.
no, I was going to say a lot of people ask, well, what kind of vitamins you take? You must take a whole load of vitamins and
Yeah.
supplements and goose egg, Zippo, nothing.
I did a whole video about all the stuff I was throwing out that I didn't need anymore. The cold remedies, the vitamins, the supplements, all that stuff. And I was like, it's kind of embarrassing, because I'm healthier than I've ever been and I'm not taking any of this stuff anymore. I feel better than I ever did. And I don't need this stuff, and I've held up all kinds of bottles. I'm sure it was $200-300 worth of stuff that
Yeah,
had
easily.
accumulated over time.
Well, and I say to people, I say every single vitamin, mineral, and nutrient I need, I get from meat and fat. And there's just no need to take a synthetic chemically produced equivalent in a pill form if I'm not deficient in anything and feel great. And that's really the bottom line for me. Maybe others might think differently. Well, just as a security blanket, let me take a multivitamin every day. Well, more power to you. You're gonna pee most of it out, and but if it psychologically makes you feel better, I guess there's really nothing wrong with it. And the other thing also is the whole issue on the nose to tail eating. Just so people are very curious, usually for somebody who's eaten this way for a long time, as to how much organ meat I eat. And that's another big fat goose egg. None. Don't like it. Don't want to eat it. Doesn't taste good to me. I'm doing fine without it. If you were going to tell me I'm going to get scurvy unless I eat liver once a month, maybe I would dehydrate it and spread it very thinly on my ribeye to try to scarf it down, but that's about it. So I got to say, in 11 years, I literally have not had kidney, liver, heart, nothing, zero.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe people, well, obviously if you like organ meats, eat them, but
Right.
I think maybe there's some people that have deficiencies. I mean, who knows what kind of crazy diet or what kind of illness they had before they started. Maybe if some people would do better with some organ meats if they had deficiencies already
Yeah,
and
I
with
have
some
nothing
liver.
against them if you like them, or if there's a specific,
Yeah.
maybe problem that you had show up that it's rich in liver, then that's fine. But yeah, I don't think there's anything against it. I'm just making the point that for sure I don't feel it's necessary, or I certainly would be eating it.
Yeah, I agree. So how does it make you feel now that the carnivore movement's really got some traction and seems to be kind of exploding?
It's so awesome for me, because I still think now, it's exploding now, but in a controlled way, because it's still, I mean, you can walk down the street and there are plenty of people who never heard of carnivore eating, and could never imagine that would be healthy, and don't know anything about it. But I do believe that somewhere down the line there's going to be some phone calls or written messages to me that said, I remember, 20 years ago, you talking about this and saying this, and didn't want to, believe you or think it was the right thing to do. And now look at it, because I think it will actually really be a big movement. I know the pharmaceutical industry will have its way to, get that tampered down, and also, all the huge billion-dollar industry of garbage food, you know, even Coca-Cola, and like all these huge companies are going to, I'm sure at some point, try to um, impede the progress. But there's no stopping success, and there's no stopping success stories, and there's no stopping people like you and me from saying this has been life-changing, and life-changing in the most positive, beneficial way. But again, is it for everybody? I think I think it's unfortunate that a lot of people won't ever try it or eat this way, because they have not hit any sort of personal rock bottom. But I think, and especially from what I know, even from macular degeneration with eye disease, that it takes about 30 to, I'd say 30 to 40 years of eating these, like the polyunsaturated fatty acids, like canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, all these crappy, really toxic oils to our body. They're showing that that's years and years of that, and sugar that is causing what they thought was an age-related, macular issue is they truly are determining that it's diet related. And that's not something, now when somebody's in my chair with, moderate macular degeneration, I mean, I could tell them, well, you got to stop eating. These are things that are known and shown to be causative of this. I mean, I think that's a motivating factor. If I say, this disease could potentially blind you, but unfortunately, that it's a silent disease over so many years of eating the crappy standard American processed food diet that nobody's turning to it back then.
Right.
So,
Yeah, it's kind of like fatty liver disease. Turns out to be, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, like the most common disease, but people typically don't have any symptoms till they're older, but they've had it for
right.
decades, right? And people
And
just don't even hear about it.
and I'm sure, like when I was a kid, I never heard of Alzheimer's. I've never, even autism. I never heard of that. Like
Sure,
that. And why is it exploding now? Just like
exactly.
macular degeneration. It was rare in the 1930s and 40s. And now it's like every other patient I have has
Mm.
either the starts of it or some form of it. So yeah, and so what's changing and what's changed? And I think that um, yeah, we're a long way away from having word be out that everybody should be eating this way to be their healthiest version of themselves. But it's just it. In answer to your question, it's so exciting for me to see at least the uptick of what's come about in the past 2 to 3 years. That um, I think that so many more people now who really need the help and want the help can at least be easily find the information on the internet.
Yeah, I think it's once you get over that initial sort of hump of knowing that the information's out there, because I would, it was a long time. I was like, God, I just want to eat meat, and then, finally one day I'm like, well, I should look that up and see what happens, right? And then I find this whole world out there of other people that are already doing it, and I never imagined it was there, right?
Right.
So there is that thing of if we get the message out there more, so at least it's on people's radar, and then the people who are looking for the information can find it. And of course, the other side of that is there's so much information, whether it's you need to eat fiber or plants are good for you. You see the language has changed. Like they speak about all plants as though they're all equal and we should eat them, right? And
Right.
then they might break it down into fruits and vegetables. You should eat lots of fruits and vegetables. And some people tell you fruits better, some people tell you vegetables better, but they're all just this wide spectrum that is considered all the same goodness. And there's no counter measurement. There's no message that says, well, there's a good chance that at least some of these plants are not healthy for you as an individual. And it could be that none of them are healthy for you.
Right.
And people never hear that.
No, and that's one of the I guess one of my fun shock factor things I say when I just sense somebody's just um, asking me questions just to ride me about how wrong I am. I say, well, you know what? I actually don't believe that vegetables are healthy at all. And if you're interested, I can send you links to a couple really great articles that actually discuss that whole topic. And
Yeah.
I actually wouldn't put a vegetable in my body. So, don't feel sorry for me because I don't eat them and you think I'm deprived of certain vitamins and minerals and I'm going to damage my health. But thank you for your concern.
I recently saw a friend I hadn't seen in a couple of years, and he had been like on almost no. He was only let himself eat meat like once a week or once a month or something because of his cholesterol and a lot of heart disease in his family and all that. And so he was asking me what I've been doing, and I told him, well, I had arthritis and psoriasis and this and that, and I'm just eating meat now. And he says, oh, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't realize it was that bad. I'm sorry that you can only eat meat. And I'm like, well, don't worry about it because I'm as happy as I could be. This is great. And he just looked at me, and And it was like, that was the end of the conversation because I might as well just punched him in the face. You
Right.
know?
Or you actually was probably feeling badly for you that was how you were going to cure what your problems are, but it was actually going to cause you to get a heart attack.
Yeah, all of that. It's like, I'm sorry that your health requires you to do something so drastic, and it's probably going to kill you.
Right.
Oh
Right.
no. Yeah, so there is a lot of shock factor there, you know. So it's hard
Yeah.
for
And
people to
when
wrap their head around.
yeah. And well, and the whole question about fiber, like that's such a big push in media. It's like we are so brainwashed, so brainwashed. Lots of fruits and vegetables, high fiber. And people are like, well, where do you get your fiber? Guess what? I don't need any fiber. I don't need it.
Mm,
And I tell people, I say, I actually believe that the undigestible cellulose and fiber that's in all these fruits and vegetables you're eating are abrasive to the colon and causing the polyps. So there, what do you think of that?
yeah, and if you you want to raise your risk of cancer, just have inflammatory bowel disease, because your risk for colon cancer goes through the roof. So once people find out that you know, a lot of this IBS and Crohn's disease and stuff like that can actually be made worse by eating fiber. There's quite a few people that have found that out. You know, they suffered with diverticulosis and stuff like that, and
Right.
then they stop eating fiber and it heals up. It's
Well, think,
exact opposite of what the doctor said. The doctor said,
yeah,
don't eat meat, eat lots of fiber, and their condition just got worse and worse. Yeah.
think what's going to happen to the Metamucil company if this word gets out.
Well, when I started this, I bought some fiber just in case. I'm like, well, I'm afraid if I stop eating
Yeah,
fiber, you know, things could go wrong. So I had
to
this
get all
big
blocked up,
bottle. Yeah, and I never needed it. So,
throw it
yeah,
out with the vitamins.
it's expired now. Anyways, I don't know how fiber expires, but I threw
Probably
it
not.
out. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's probably like ground up
Probably
cardboard or
similar to
something anyway.
sawdust, right?
They actually put cardboard in the high fiber breakfast cereals. It's ground up paper, cardboard,
Wow.
the same stuff they make the boxes out of. So,
Yeah.
well, should we show off some of your pictures real quick? I know I've got a handful of pictures from you.
Sure. Yep. That's one of my favorite things when people try to
Oops.
give me a hard time about the way I eat and why I eat this way. And meanwhile, they're overweight and struggling with their own issues. I say, well, you know what? I'm 55. I've had 2 children, and I am so happy to proudly walk around in a bikini. So,
And it
um,
is the day after Christmas, so I figure we start with Santa Claus.
yeah.
Santa Claus and Lisa in her bikini, her Christmas bikini,
Yeah.
clearly. And here's another one with your
I
daughter.
have my 20-year-old daughter.
Yeah. And then this one here, you said was in Cancun.
Last year on vacation. And again, I just,
It's
after
quite the tan.
suffering for so long, with body weight image, you know, the whole gamut of what you get with eating disorders. And, it's just been, like I said, a golden ticket life changer for me, that I don't have to restrict my calories. I don't have to over exercise. I don't have to count anything, and I don't have to starve myself, and I can eat as much delicious meat as I want and be lean and healthy. So if there's anything to put out there from my video, is that there is life after eating disorders. And if anybody would like to direct message me, I'm on Instagram, Carnivore Doctor. Be happy to answer questions.
Yeah. Awesome. That's very, very generous of you. Yeah, it's certainly a lot of people out there struggle with different types of eating disorders.
Yeah, and it's debilitating. People don't realize it because it's a very silent. It's really an embarrassing kind of um, secretive disease that most people don't expose or discuss. And there's so many people suffering, and it's people do not realize how addictive sugar is. People don't realize that that is really no different than an alcoholic or a drug addict. And it's I I guess I make the equivalent. It's very difficult. I have a friend actually who was an alcoholic and addicted to drugs and a bulimic, and
Hmm.
she gave up, and a smoker. So she gave up the cigarettes. She went to AA and was able to stop the alcohol, and she was able to get herself rehabbed off of all drugs. And she said, absolutely, out of those four addictions, the eating disorder was the worst and hardest to get over.
Hmm.
And, it's one of those things where with the alcohol, you can just eliminate alcohol from your life, and the drugs, you just don't have drugs in your life. Um, and and the cigarettes, same thing. You just don't buy cigarettes and don't have them. But with eating disorders, you have to eat food, and it's really I guess part of the difficult aspect of getting over an eating disorder and an addiction like that. But and she's also zero carb. We called it zero carb back in my day, 11 years ago. It was always called zero carb. But
Yeah.
this, carnivory, she's still to this day also total carnivore and cured of her eating disorders too.
Yeah, believe it or not, when I first got into it, I called it zero carb. And then I don't know if it was, I think some people just don't want to step on other people's toes because they kind of felt like somebody else had coined the phrase.
No, I think it came because people said, well, I can have sugar-free Jello. That has zero carbs in it,
Yeah.
right? And then somebody else said, well, Diet Coke has zero carbs. And,
But there is that,
X,
right?
Y, and Z is zero carbs. So,
And
um,
theoretically, some meat has a tiny amount
exactly.
of
And
carbohydrate in
eggs
it,
have
right?
carbs, shrimp, seafoods has
Yeah.
very minor, but
Yeah.
so the term, I guess, was transitioned when, there was just a discussion where it's really animal based, animal food. And I mean, I think carnivore is really the best term for it. But again, too, I mean, and I occasionally eat shrimp. So I mean, I don't have a total beef diet, but the majority of what I eat is beef, mainly because that's what I like the most and what I feel the best on. I rarely eat chicken, other than I love chicken wings as an appetizer. If I'm at a restaurant, I ask, do you serve naked wings? They always like that term. And I said, it's
Naked
important.
wings.
I can't have no breading, no breading. Oh no, we've just got, and I season. I use herbs and some spices. I mean, for the most part, I've sort of transitioned to mainly just liking salt. But I do like to season, like if I make baby back ribs or chicken wings with a nice dry rub of just assorted spices. But um, I think that for the most part, if I had my choice, it would really just be beef.
Yeah, I mostly eat beef myself. I've been known to make the legs disappear off a rotisserie chicken here or there, but I don't eat much
Yeah,
chicken either. So
yeah, and just I mean, and I don't purposely buy it and cook it and make it for variety. And people say, well, don't you get bored eating this and that and the other thing? I was like, no, I make ground beef sometimes. I shop the sales for ribeye and New York strip. Um, Occasionally I'll make baby back ribs just if they're on sale and the mood hits me, but for the most part, day to day, it's beef, it's steaks or ground beef. When I go out to eat, I love finding just a great steakhouse, or if I'm just going out with friends, it's a diner. Well, here I'm in New Jersey, so we have a lot of diners, and
hmm.
eat a bunless burger and go home and eat more burgers. It's one burger never really will do it, but um, you know,
No.
but there's always ways around, going out to eat.
Yeah, fortunately here in California, we've got this fast food chain called In-N-Out, and they have a real simple menu. But if you know the tricks of the trade, you can order like a 4x4, which is get you 4 patties, or you can get a Flying Dutchman, which is just a meat patty with cheese, or maybe it's two. It's
And
pretty
it's
cheap.
good. You know what? I for the first time ate at an In-N-Out. I had read about it over the years on these forums because obviously there's people across the country, and I just
Yeah.
happened to be in Palm Springs, California,
Oh.
a couple months ago, And so when we passed one, I said to my friend, pull over. And then I had remembered reading about the Flying Dutchman. So I ordered it, but it was just, if I wish I would have known by the 4x4, I think I ordered 2 Flying Dutchmans and it just wasn't quite enough.
No, you'll see pictures of Sean will have a box of like a dozen Flying Dutchman in his lap. And they do, you can get, if you say you want your burger protein style, to wrap it in lettuce too. So I do that sometimes too, because it's, you know, it's convenient, you know, and
So
I don't.
it's a 4x4, the actual burger that has a bun on 4, and you just tell them no bun, but I want a 4x4? Or?
Well, a lot of times I'll just order it and just not eat the bun, because the bun's just there to keep my fingers from getting greasy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, I don't even like them to put the bun on it, because I'm afraid it's going to absorb some of the great fat that I want just it's sitting in. But but like I'll go to McDonald's and order on their a la carte menu the patties. That always works great. I usually order like 4 or 5 quarter pounders with whatever, 2 or 3 slices of cheese put in between. It's always complicated getting them to put it into one box.
Yeah, it's the containers that always throw them off for some reason. So yeah. So and like you said, I don't get tired of. I can eat 15 New York strips in a row. I'll never get tired of them.
No, so. You get hungry enough. And then the other thing I'll bring up, I don't know if any of your viewers are interested, but I have been really, as of probably the past 6 months, reading into and researching intermittent fasting. And a lot of times I'll do the OMAD, OMAD, 1 meal a day.
Mm-hmm.
Other times I usually wouldn't eat more than twice a day, though, even with my general day-to-day eating.
Yep. That's pretty common. Seems pretty common with the carnivores. I did a lot of OMAD. I did a lot of fasting in the past too. And then I started doing a lot of weightlifting about 8 months ago. And I took a different approach just to see what the difference would be. And now I eat like 3, sometimes 4 times a day, but I definitely eat at least twice before and after I work out. And I have noticed that it puts muscle on like crazy. So I think keeping that protein flowing and keeping that the level of leucine, at least when you look at the studies, you know, having at least 2.5 grams, I think it is, of leucine, is optimal for putting muscle on if you want to do that. So anyways, so did we cover everything?
Well, I think so. I mean, we can always do version 2 after you get a lot of questions that anybody would like to have brought up. I'd be happy to come on again, and we can do a whole separate video just answering different people's questions.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to do that. And I always do a follow-up video. I mean, I just do these videos to help people hear other people's stories, you know, get some information, get inspired. That's one of the things I suggest to people when they get started is, if you want to change your diet, you know, you want to go carnivore or whatever, 0 carb, then try and you know, go to a website and read at least once a day, watch a video once a day.
Surround yourself with support and know that you're not doing it alone. And I think that's really important, is just read or watch something every day.
Yeah, those meetings at MeetRx are great. You know, I've gotten to know, you know, you, and you see Raymond in there, I'm sure, all the time. And that's where I met Emily. Emily, I did a video with last week. It was a big hit. And I'm doing one with Tracy.
I'm hoping that that will, because I'm going to be signing on as a carnivore coach over there too, like you, and just reaching out to anybody who feels that what my background is might help benefit them as far as either the eating disorders or the carb and sugar addiction and all that. But that it's such a great source for people who are coming to this. I wish I had that 11 years ago when I stumbled into this and I sort of, you know, just literally just threw myself into that one little forum of people. But it got me through. It got me to the point where I realized that this truly was one of the most life-changing, amazing thing for me to have discovered. And like I said, it just makes me, I want to shout it from the rooftops, you know, for anybody who wants to listen and
Yeah,
help whoever we can. I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do.
Oh,
Very much so. Yeah.
good. All
So,
right.
well, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, and it's been great getting to know you, and it's great having you in those meetings. And
Yeah, I'm going to try to be in there as much as I can. So anybody, you know, wants to go over to MeetRx and get the benefit of that, that's, I think, really, really good too. So it's a great community.
yeah, we're about to start World Carnivore Month in January, so
Yeah.
a few days from now. So I think the community will start growing even at an even greater pace now.
Yeah, that'll be great. All right. Thanks. Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, and everybody out there, feel better.